So now we're going to graph a function and it's not in the vertex form. So we're going to have to use the vertex formula to find the vertex. But we're going to follow the same steps that we've used to graph a quadratic function before. First of all, is it right side up or upside down? Well, you're going to go by a, which is the coefficient on x squared. So a is -1. So we're expecting it to be upside down because it's negative. A is negative. Okay? To find the vertex, then, we have to use the vertex formula. So we're going to find the opposite of b over 2a. That will be h. Okay. So remember, this is a is -1, b in this case is -2. And if we need c, c is 1. Okay. So I get -2, the opposite of -2 over 2 times -1. Just plugging in the b and the a that we got from over here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then we have what? 2 over -2, which is -1. So h is -1. That's h. Okay, in our h comma k. So how do we find k? Well, k is going to equal f of -1. You're going to plug in that h value. So you have the opposite of -1 squared minus 2 times -1 plus 1. Now you have to be careful here because you've got a lot of negative signs running around in this equation, and our h was -1. So make sure you're careful with that. And then you also have to follow the order of operations. So the exponent comes first. It's going to be the opposite of 1. This is going to be a -2 times a -1, so plus 2 plus 1. And that's going to be 2. So my vertex is going to be at -1 comma 2. All right, so I will put that in. -1, 2. There's my vertex. And I know it's upside down. So just remember, okay, it's upside down. So we're expecting some x-intercepts here, right? Okay, so try to remember the function. Now, what do we do, part 3 here, if we want to find the x-intercepts? Well, we take that function that we had, see if I can remember it, it's scrolled up, like that, and we're setting it to 0. Okay. You could use the quadratic formula here. I probably wouldn't. I probably would just use completing the square. So I would divide both sides or multiply both sides by -1. I'll show you how I would do it. If you want to see the quadratic formula, it's in the textbook. So, but if I multiply by a -1, and then I put 1 on the other side, the -1, it'll be a +1 over here. And then I complete the square. So half of 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1. I get that. And then I have x plus 1 squared equals 2. Well, I can take the square root of both sides. And so I get x equals -1 plus or minus 2. And I'm sorry, I left out the square root of 2, which I think is about 1.4, if I'm remembering right. So I'm going to have like -1 plus 1.4 and -1 minus 1.4. So now remember, this is to find the x-intercepts. These are x-intercepts we're finding. So we think there's one at about 0.4 and about -2.4. So let's see what that looks like. 0.4, I'm going to say, is maybe about right there. And then -2 and 2.4 is about there. Looks symmetric. I probably wouldn't even bother with those. I would just evaluate the function at other values. But that would be just me. All right, and then in step 4, we want to find the y-intercept. So f of 0. So you're putting that into the function, which was, it's right here, but I'll be putting in 0. But what happens? Well, that's 0, so you just get 1. So 0, 1, which is right here, that is the y-intercept right there. You're only going to get one y-intercept. But you know where the vertex is. You know the axis of symmetry. I forgot to draw that in. But now I know there's a point on the other side right there. It's 5 points. That's enough to make the parabola. You could find more points by just simply plugging in more values into the function, but that works.